afternoon to everybody, or this afternoon. Just before we start, just so everybody knows who is present of the commissioners, I will hold roll call. Commissioner DeMont Davis.
Present.
All right, Commissioner Sana Gregory.
Here.
Commissioner Gail Hambert.
Here.
Commissioner Felicia Warner. Franklin Warner. Okay, she hasn't joined us yet, Madam Clerk. That is four of the commissioners are present. This is our very first work session, and we appreciate those of you who showed up, any citizens, and those of you who are joining us via Zoom. All right, the purpose of work session is to talk through items of concern or for direction from board members. And I'm looking for my agenda here. Okay, and we do have an agenda for this afternoon, and I see that Commissioner Felicia Franklin Warner has joined us at this time, so please take note of that. All right, our first item up for discussion this evening is going to be Madam Clerk.
Okay, the preliminary items that were on there are the items that are going to the agenda, so if anybody wanted to discuss those, but no one, I don't know.
All right, so we passed out the preliminary items that has been entered on the minute track for next week's, or for this Wednesday's agenda meeting, which is tomorrow. Are there any questions or areas of concern that any commissioner would like to discuss in reference to the preliminary items?
Mr. Chair, I know this is our first meeting, and hello everyone, I apologize, trying to pull up this link. It's not always as easy, but I was hoping that we would get a presentation, at least a brief presentation, because to just say we have questions, you know, we get that preliminary item list ahead of time, but at the end of the day, we don't get a presentation of it. There's an experience. I can only speak from my experience. An experience, usually there is a moment to go over the agenda items and then a time for questioning, and that way we're on the same page. If that's just my little 2 cents or suggestion of hopes that we could do in these sessions.
So when you speak of presentation on the preliminary items, you are asking that somebody present each of the items that we sent in advance?
Similar to what you do in your agenda meetings. When you have an agenda meeting, you're presented with those items. And as you're presented with those items, as I've participated in the past, that oftentimes may generate questions, but we did, I just received the information, but again, that's just my thought. And I don't know if the board feels the same, but it's only my thought.
Okay, well, can we do this then, Commissioner? Because we were not prepared to go over like we do on an agenda meeting with all of the directors, but to have that as a item for next, or go through that process at our next work session.
I concur if everyone else does, sir.
Anybody have a problem with that when it comes to the preliminary items? Okay.
I would suggest if there's only questions on it, but to go through every single one of them could cause us immense time with the other items that we want to discuss.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. That's why I had Madam Clerk to send it out to all the commissioners prior to, so they can look at it, and hopefully if there was any questions to bring it before us at this time, because we do have a lengthy agenda before us this evening as well.
Okay, Mr. Chair, on average, how long do those agenda meetings take? I've participated in a couple, and I don't think they take that long.
No, they don't, but when you have only limited, number one, what we receive on Monday is not this Wednesday is tomorrow is when we set the agenda. Well, I guess you're right in that respect, that we should have all of the items by that Monday when we send out the preliminary agenda. So in that same vein, as I said earlier, I don't think the directors were prepared to have to go through the agenda item again. And if that's going to be the case, then there might be some things that we can do instead of having a operational review meeting on Monday, to might just hold it for Tuesday's work sessions, to go through it at that time. But that's something that I have to talk through and figure out what would be the best way to do that, to be most responsive to what your request is.
And again, it's just my thought, and other boards I serve on, it doesn't take long just to at least go through them, but I understand your point as well as Commissioner Davis's point.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. So we'll proceed on at this time to have a presentation or an update, I'll call it, from Transportation Advisory Board member, Mr. Keith Parker. So, Ms. Parker, if you would come forth and present us with an update.
Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Hamburg.
Chairman and Commissioners. Let me say this, at our regular meeting on last week, you mentioned, you introduced Mr. Parker as having knowledge because he is on that Citizens Advisory Board, but this is information that he has obtained, and I'm sure he'll explain it to us, that he has obtained on his own and hasn't been discussed in those sessions, but he can explain to you better than I can. That's why I wanted him to bring it to us.
Okay,
You know, so
thank
we can have some knowledge of information that I think we should have, but as far as I know, we do not have. So I'll let him proceed.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Parker, please.
Good evening, Chairman Mr. Davis and other commissioners. I'm here tonight just to bring a bit of what I hope to be is clarity as to my scope and my research, in which then I have been involved with, first of all, the MARTA Advisory Board. And I want to keep it there because I believe that the topic tonight is about transportation-oriented development in this project presentation tonight.
Well, let me say, that's what, from my understanding, this was what your concern was, TLDs in the Mountain View area. You
That is
brought that
correct.
up as an issue last
That is correct.
week.
Yes.
But you are also, and I apologize for interrupting here, but you are aware that TLD developments are part of the Mountain View Development Project, right?
Yes, I am aware of it, and what I'm actually here to speak on is the prioritization of those projects.
Okay.
I
please.
realize that there are individual owners, and I'm also aware that there is county property that is involved as well.
Yeah, but there are catalytic nodes or sites, development nodes, where I think there's like 4 or 5 of them on the front end of, or front part of Mountain View area facing I-75, where we have talked in the past about having TLDs as a part of those nodes. But go ahead.
Okay. So basically, my research has led me, and this started for me back in about 2009, 2010, as it relates to transportation-oriented development guidelines adopted by MARTA Board of Directors, and this is dated, this document that I have is dated November 2010. So we are now 2020. And what I'd like to find out is, do we have a number of transportation-oriented development projects that are listed in Clayton County?
When you say listed, other than planned out, there was a comprehensive plan that was introduced by then, I believe, Commissioner Michael Edmondson, and the board adopted that plan, I want to say, back 2016, 18,
Okay. So,
somewhere back there. And I believe that, I don't know where it might be listed, but it definitely was discussed.
okay, so in relations to MARTA's website, they on their website, they have a list of transportation-oriented development projects. As of today, I didn't find one listed on MARTA's website as it relates to Clayton County.
Because when you talk about the Mountain View area, when you talk about all the work that needs to be done, as you just mentioned, there's private property, there's City of Atlanta owns property, we own property over there. So once you are able to bring everybody together for a development project, then that's when we can start really getting with our MARTA to say that through this node, this is the type of development that we expect to have, or that we're looking to have developed, and we want a TOD to be erected at that location.
Good. So as a county, we're singularly looking at just Mountain View and not the entirety of the county?
Well, we're starting with Mountain View.
Starting with Mountain View.
Because that's the most important area right now, is that Mountain View area, because of the available land and the location where it sits close to Hartsfield Jackson.
Okay, so basically then, as I have studied over the years, there are many different opportunities for us as a county with TOD projects. One is joint development, procurement, and land dispositions. That's number one. Number two is going to be access to stations, which then we will eventually come on board with, which we probably are about 5 years behind in a maintenance facility as of right now, based on our 14th Amendment. And thirdly, we're talking about then parking TOD, and fourth is affordable housing. So I know that we have several segments of affordable housing projects that are going on throughout the county. And there is a substantial amount of transportation-oriented development funding that can be implemented in our county, and I'm not seeing as of yet where we're actually utilizing any of it. And I don't know if it's because we're just waiting singularly on a said project, or whether we're opening our minds up to all of the options that we have. Number 5 is sustainability building practices. There is about a 20-year notice that has been given out to every sustainable development group throughout the country. And it seems to me that we're kind of lacking in our sustainable building practices as it becomes much more prevalent throughout the nation, but we seem to not necessarily be focusing on that. And then intergovernmental activities. That's number 6 here. And participation in stationary development reviews. So I'm also wanting to know then, where is our oversight committee as it pertains to these development projects that are coming through? Transportation-oriented development projects, plural, in Clayton County.
Well, let me say this. You're part of the MARTA Advisory Board, Citizens Advisory Board, so you should be privileged to whatever conversations are going on in that space. We also have our representatives that sit on the MARTA board. We even have one of our own, Commissioner Franklin Warner, who sits on those 2 of those boards as well, and very important boards that are tuned in to what the developments and what's coming down the chutes in terms of how it impacts and what the expectations are of Clayton County, what our expectations are. So I know she's representing us in that space as well. Then you got to talk about the Development Authority, as well as our COO and others, who does have a pulse on what's going on. But at the same time, you got to look at, you got to crawl before you walk. And that's why I said one of the most important developments that we can start off with is the Mountain View area, because it's poised to be the gem, really, of the north side of Clayton County and south side of the city of Atlanta, period. So, you know, it's not a sprint. It's going to be a crawl. We just got into this game in 2014. 2014, so you're talking about 6 years. Do we want everything that we expected like yesterday? Absolutely. But let's be realistic in our expectations as well. So I appreciate what you're bringing to us. There are some other things that we definitely need to look at and take notice of. But what you're bringing for us today is just an update or your questions as to where we are when it comes to our transit or TOD developments, correct?
That is correct. And also I'd like to add a portion to this, which would then be our our methods in which our buses are operating on our streets as it pertains to the Disability Act. I have some concerns about that, primarily based on our safe pathway guidelines that we should be adhering to. There are many challenges that we have throughout the county, and 98% of our routes are on state roadways. And as you alluded to earlier, our commissioner, Ms. Warner, is on then the ATL board, if I'm not mistaken. And that being a state-governed entity, and how then we should be interacting as far as the safety of our citizens as we then participate, and I mean very well, in this transportation model, because we have some of the highest ridership in the MARTA system. It has been duly noted since we came on in that brief time of these 6 years. We are in the higher ridership column.
2 of our lines, that's correct.
Okay, I'll accept that.
Yeah. But to your point, yes, you are correct.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
While you're sitting on this board, have you brought up those issues to the MARTA personnel?
Yes, timely I have, over the years.
And the response, well, this recently, what you're bringing to us now, have you spoke recently with them about it?
Actually, when MARTA changed management, and well, actually they added management to their compliance, and Ms. Gina Majors was the last person that I spoke with, who is the compliance director with MARTA, and I spoke to her directly about then these issues of safe pathways along our state roadways in Clayton County, and she at that time suggested that she would then come out, take a look at it, well, actually organize a meeting with us, come out and take a look at it. That has not happened as of yet. Now, I know that everybody's busy. I know that we're all in this COVID pandemic mode. I understand. I really do.
Well, and I appreciate you sharing that with us, but that is something that should have been addressed. So now that you told me, and please get with me and give me those names again, and
Yeah.
I'll reach out to them as well to try to make sure that we make that happen. Commissioner
Mr. Chair,
Felicia.
since you referenced me, let me say this. Today I had a meeting with Kane, who's our new transit, he's the actual transit planner for the ATL Link Authority. And I want to clarify something. I've heard over and over again, people say I serve on MARTA. I don't serve on MARTA. I represent District 10, which includes Coweta, Clayton, Hampton, Henry, and Fayette, and some lower parts of Fulton on that authority. And that authority is made up of all 13 counties. And what I want our citizens to understand is, while we have those on the front line, like Mr. Parker, who's doing an amazing job and gathering information from that end, by having a sitting commissioner on that authority, I'm able to see what the various jurisdictions and the providers are submitting for a bond referendum from the state. So with the ATL Link Authority, all projects within 13 counties, including the city of Atlanta, must go through the ATL Transit Link Authority in order to receive federal funding or state funding. Now, if there are projects that are funded by local dollars, which I will tell you our project has local funding, as we know, then those items still have to be in the transit, the TIP plan. It has to be included in there. And that's in order for it to even be considered for anything. With that being stated, Mr. Parker, the importance about what you discussed is the fact that MARTA is not only formulating plans as a board, but they also have to submit those plans to the ATL Transit Link Authority to be reviewed by the state for possible bond referendum. Now, we do have projects that have been submitted by MARTA that are in the plan. Everyone is able to come to those meetings. I send out the link and the information. I even send it to the Board of Commissioners. And I also want to reference, when I first got on the board, I came back to our board and suggested that we do as others have done and not leave it just to MARTA to make sure that our transit plans are done. And that's mobility. That's inclusive of first mile, last mile. That's walkability, sidewalks, all of that. As you were talking about ADA compliance, I asked for us to consider having somebody on our staff that specifically looked at that. And that is what Atlanta did in order to get the more MARTA plan, as well as others have done. They have people that live in that space to coordinate between transportation and development, community development, as you're talking about, Mr. Parker, as well as affordable housing in the Housing Authority. You'll see that Druid Hills, the Emory Druid Hill area, has been very successful because they plan collectively together. Nothing's being done in isolation. So I do commend you for coming to the work session today. I commend the commissioner for having you come together, because I think there's a huge opportunity for us to begin to plan and not just having one-off conversations. The more that we are all on the same page with the same narrative, we will begin to see that success. The other point I want to make right now, coming up in October, there are going to be 3 scenarios submitted to the ATL Transit Link Authority to be submitted to the state. Scenario A is equitable and all-inclusive and includes Clayton County. Scenarios B and C do not necessarily include all the other areas. In fact, in one of the scenarios is a project to fix sidewalks on the north end of Atlanta to make them ADA compliant. So as your commissioner and representative, I immediately brought it to the attention of the board that it would be difficult to be able to support that initiative, considering we got areas in Clayton and even South Fulton where people can't even get to the bus stop safely. So today what I did, I went out with our Solicitor General, as well as our new transit planner for the ATL Transit Link Authority, and I brought them to our busiest highway that is now one of the most dangerous highways in the state of Georgia. Buford Highway used to be that way, but they made changes to it. And that includes making sure it's transit friendly, mobility friendly. And so the planner was able to see firsthand the issues we're dealing with the pedestrian traffic and with the fatalities that we've had. So I thank you again for your comment. I think that we need to use these work sessions to do more strategic planning so that we're all on the same page as we move forward.
Thank you. And if I may follow with that, when we start looking into projects as a whole, coming from, I've had a very long, extensive career in construction and at management levels. What I don't see is submittals, and if anyone needs the definition of it, I'm sure you'll take time to do so, and also with specifications. We talk about what it is that we're going to do, but I have yet to see any submittals or specifications for anything.
What are you speaking of submittals?
You can find that in the tip, sir. It has to be submitted. And you can find it on the ATL Transit Link Authority link. But I do want to make one other point that you brought up. The other point is that heavily weighing towards what gets funded is the fact that we are looking at it from a zoning perspective and our land use. I've been talking about this since I got on this board. Our land use, which you're talking about, the transit-oriented developments, have to be concise with our transit comprehensive plan. The more that we can come together and plan collectively together, the better we're going to be as a community as we move forward on the same page. The last thing I want to mention, though, Mr. Chairman, I want to bring it to your remembrance. There was some additional funding that was still available to us to the tune of about a little over $1 million that was brought to our attention. We need to make sure that we pay attention to all funding and not just leave it up to MARTA, because some of that funding is earmarked specifically to be used in Clayton County based on our populace. So we just have a lot of work in this space, but there's a lot of opportunity for us as well.
I concur.
Well, let me ask a simple question, because, and Commissioner Hambrick stated last week, and it was a very valid point. We don't want folks to tell us what we want in our county. So my question is, with all of this MARTA, and we've talked about plans, and we've talked about community development, where's the plan? You, Mr. Parker, just stated, where's the oversight committee? If we have no plan and no oversight committee, then we have no power. What are we asking for? What's our ultimate goal here? And in my mind, we need to have that plan and the oversight committee which looks at implementing the plan. with the, what Commissioner Warner just spoke of with these grants, whatever, to begin to make them knowledgeable to the board to where we can begin to go after them.
So you
Mr.
have
Commissioner
in place
Davis?
right now is what is called a Citizens Advisory Group.
Well, exactly.
On that Citizens Advisory Group,
Yes.
we meet with MARTA management. We offer suggestions based on what the citizens believe is then a need in the county as far as their ridership experience.
I can state a need, but that's only an agenda. When I ask for a plan, it basically states, this is what we want, and this is how we're going after to accomplish it. Okay, and that's my point. We can sit up here and talk till we're blue in the face. If we have no plan, we can't, where are we going? We can't move forward.
Well, I'm going to
With or
suggest.
without an oversight committee.
I'm going to suggest then that maybe there be more engagement with the Citizens Advisory Group that will then bring further awareness and maybe much more expedient awareness other than to wait on a MARTA quarterly meeting, because we're actually boots on the ground every day.
And I agree.
And to that point, if you bring your concerns or the board or through your minutes, however you want to do that, to get it to us on this board, then we have tentacles that reach out to MARTA. And like you said, if y'all only meet quarterly, yeah, it should be more meetings in between so they understand fully what our expectations are. They can't act if they don't know. So,
But, I'm sorry.
so if maybe, who is the chairperson on that board?
There isn't a designated chair on that board, and that's where we're trying to, I've been asking for about a year and a half now to get a org chart on what then would be the roles of our Citizens Advisory Group. We were appointed by, but then now we need a delineation as to the roles and how we then articulate our business.
Who did you make that request to?
Well, I've started with Virgil, that is current. I've also talked to our MARTA board members, and I haven't got clarity on that as of yet. So now, where do I go from there? I don't know. So I would like for you to help me in that process of finding out the delineation of then the roles of the Citizens Advisory Group members.
If you're a Citizens Advisory Group of Clayton County,
That's correct.
then correct me, Mr. Reed, but we can specify or create a structure for them to operate under, correct?
Yes, if you all created them, you can,
I mean, we've already appointed them, we could just leave it up to them to structure themselves.
correct.
You understand?
Remember
I
this,
understand
that's
clearly.
looking for that, that's an advisory group, not a board.
I
An
said they
advisory-
can structure themselves, whether they call themselves chairman. They got to have a point person or somebody who's delegated to come to talk to each of us, or just, Mr. Parker has taken it upon himself
Yes.
to come here to enlighten us. And I
That's not the
think,
point of the clarification. I think the question was specific from Commissioner Davis about the oversight committee. That's an advisory group that can advise on what's going on within the community. When you're talking about oversight, oversight is having some type of influence to those who are making a decision. And those that are making decisions are the two that are appointed to the MARTA board. Those are the two that are appointed to the board, and those plans, Commissioner Davis, I advise you to please go to the site. Plans have already been submitted on behalf of Clayton County. We have all got to be in the know. We got to know the difference between an advisory group that's more of a sounding group or board versus those that can truly impact the decisions that are made. And again, that's why I truly would like for us to spend some time on transportation as well as mobility and all of those aspects that Mr. Parker so eloquently stated, so that we then can begin to see the success of other counties. And I go back to having someone that's able to tie those loose ends. So Commissioner Davis, you will need an oversight committee. You will have somebody work in behalf of the county, keeping your interest right there at the forefront, working between the advisory group as well as those that are appointed on the board to make a decision.
Understand, but when Mr. Parker started off, he started off with a very poignant point. He basically said, we have all of these, I'm gonna call them items that we want to accomplish. Okay, we have a quote-unquote plan that MARTA has. How do the items that he wants to accomplish as being on this advisory group, and I understand the difference between an advisory group and a board, how do we begin to merge those together and to find out that these plans are being implemented?
Having somebody live in that space on our behalf in this county is my recommendation. That's the best practices of Gwinnett. That's the best practice of City of Atlanta. That's the best practices of Fulton County, as well as Douglas County. So that's my recommendation.
Okay, so going back to my point, where they can structure themselves, whether it's informally or formally, but you're not just a board just for the purpose of having not a board, but you're just not an advisory group just for the purpose of having one. I value the input and the any issues that y'all might have on that board or any problems that you may foresee. I need to know about it because I can only speak for myself. So you're more to me than just an advisory, a sounding board, but I, as a chairman of the county and this commission as a board, can take what you're telling us to another level. We can take it even to the two appointees that are on the MARTA board or anywhere else.
Correct.
That we
Chairman and Commissioners, that's exactly why I wanted Mr. Parker to come and let us know what we don't know.
Yes, and I'm just.
Not happening.
I'm sorry. Yes, and what I'm saying is, you know, if they structure themselves in a way where we can have more dialogue, because I would like to hear more on a regular basis as opposed to just quarterly, once you have your meetings. But you would have to set up, you need to be organized. At the end of the day, I'm not saying that you got to set up with a chairman, a vice chair, and whatever else. You need to have some kind of delegation of a person that can come and say, hey, as a advisory group, this is what we want to tell the Board of Commissioners. This is what we want to tell.
Your statement, though, I think minimizes what I was saying, and that wasn't the point.
Could I just finish my statement just for a second before you interrupt?
I apologize.
No problem. So, like I said, just from my standpoint, and no, I'm not trying to minimize what you said, Commissioner Franklin Warner, but I'm just saying from my perspective, I want to make sure that you understand that I appreciate you being here. And I think we need to hear from more than just you. You're that person that stands up, that comes to the meetings, that comes and tells us what's going on and what your concerns are. Because even though you're just an advisory group, you still, as a citizen, have concerns, and they're valid. So I would like to hear more about what's going on. Commissioner Franklin Warner?
I just want to make sure I'm clear, because, you know, sometimes I talk a little too fast because of some places I was raised. So I want to make sure I'm clear. I'm only trying to denote the difference between the two and that there's a gap. We got to find a way to make sure that what's discussed from the advisory committee is going to be moved into the place of policy making or representative of the two individuals on the MARTA board. And that's the point I'm trying to make, and making sure that we tie in all the conversations between transit-oriented development, community development, the zoning under community development, and mobility and transportation. I don't want anyone to walk away with saying, oh, it's just the committee, but I do believe in understanding the authority. And the authority, we got to make sure that there's some gap that's filled to where, as Mr. Parker and as well as others who we've all put on that committee are not just sitting there and sharing their thoughts, but we can ensure, as he's brought to us, that their concerns are going to be addressed and that the plans will be implemented. That was the purpose of that conversation. So yes, that committee is extremely important, which I participated in those meetings. But there is a gap there that we've got to shore up once again so that we can begin to see the successes that other counties are seeing with their transit-oriented development and their mobility option plans. Is that clear better, Mr. Parker? Because I want to make sure you hear me.
I understand clearly.
Wasn't this discussed previously about once this was taken care of, that this position that we're speaking about would be placed under legal, once our legal department was created?
What position you talking
Or the, as far as putting
about?
this?
The liaison?
Yes.
If you want to know, my recommendation was for somebody to lobby as well and to do that. So that way they could shore up all ends, but that was just the thought based upon.
Yeah.
best practices.
And
To
that
you-
might
to
be
you-
something to discuss, Commissioner Warner.
Well, to your point, we spoke to Mr. Reed about hiring somebody who had some of that background, that we not, who had transit background or experience.
There, if you have said something, it hasn't been put like as part of like a budget or anything like that, that says, here, you've got a budget to hire somebody for this position.
No, somebody within those two, what you got, 3 attorneys up there, that one of them would have experience in
Yes.
in that field. That's what we discussed one time before.
Not before they were hired.
Commissioner Warner, keep going into what you were saying. Did we speak about them being separate or together? You were talking about.
No, we
lobbying?
talked about them being together because that person needs to be in the lobby too.
Okay.
And I have notes that we did have that conversation.
I remember
and
that
was
conversation. I didn't know it was
that we needed
all
to go.
in conjunction. Okay.
But yes.
Okay.
Now I'm confused. So what responsibility do we have what should we expect from our 2 board members that we have? If we're gonna do all this, then
Yeah.
what do they do?
That's a valid. In my thought, they are the engine which sits with the board members and fights for what we want and begins to
They should be our
present the
lobbyists
case.
well,
But they're not the ones-
Tell me what's
They-
their responsibility.
I don't believe they should be the one developing that agenda. That's putting a lot on their plate, but they should be one fighting for what we want.
There's a gentleman by the name of Jacob in Atlanta who's brilliant. And what he does is he looks at that all of that, and also make sure he keeps his ears to the ground. There's another amazing young lady by the name of Tiffany in Douglas County. I don't know that we would want to lean on our board members to necessarily
exactly.
lobby on behalf. And when I say lobbying, I'm talking about even at the state capitol, taking it to that degree. I can only speak to, again, what other jurisdictions are doing that are finding success in those areas.
Okay. I think that's something
But
we
I
should
do
strongly
feel that there's an
consider.
opportunity for us to come together and spend more time in another work session on it, and maybe have those individuals come and speak to us, and we just begin to work.
Okay.
Would there be consideration for a Clayton County resident in that position?
I mean, if they have the,
Anything's possible, yes. There's always consideration. We're looking for the most qualified, we would be looking for the most qualified person.
Right. And oftentimes it's the person that's most connected to the community in which
I
they
won't argue.
live.
I won't argue that fact.
Yes. Okay. So, there's been other situations that have also come up in our MARTA discussions. And this is also transportation related. But let's talk about these sidewalks that are going on around the county and in the municipalities where our SPLOST money is being used because the actual county is giving out these SPLOST funding. And we've had several municipalities that have put together sidewalk plans, and those sidewalk plans did not include any transportation cushions in them, meaning there was no bump outs, there was no nothing. So basically our buses sit on our busy roadways and impede traffic. So if we were to then give a little bit more forward thought as to how we're developing our roadways and our communities, I would think that we would consider that as being part of what we plan towards, and not what we go back and fix after we've already installed.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Parker.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir.
Good stuff, Mr. Parker.
Yes, look forward to meeting with you soon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. If not, we'll meet over at the market.
All right, so next item of discussion is the new zoning district, INDP. Mr. Ajiki, are you presenting? I believe this discussion item was requested by Commissioner Hambrick. Commissioner, did you just want to, I mean, what do you want him to explain on it? What the INDP is, or what information
Well,
are you requesting?
actually, I just thought that the attorney would come to us, like the information we were given away from the meeting, and just let us know exactly what this amendment means and what it does. And
Okay.
and we'll be done with it. That was not explained to me prior to the business meeting on last week. So I mean, I'm not set for a drone. I've looked at this. I've seen this, and I'm fine with this. And I just want to.
Okay, Mr. Reed stepped out for a second. Where did?
Yeah, I don't think there's a need for us to go through this again, because we know that part of that agreement was that those property owners would have their section of land or whatever. I just don't want all that to impede on what we have in Mountain View.
Mr. Reed, if you could just discuss or give us a brief overview of what the INDP is, and what else did you ask for, Commissioner Hambrick?
No, just that an explanation of what we're doing with that amendment and all. I'm fine with it, but it's just that I don't think it was explained to the public the way we got the explanation last week. And that's why I was saying, and thank you, Mr. EGK, but I don't have a need to go through all the drawings and the land. I just want to make sure that those owners, that land stays where it is and does not interfere with what we want to do in Mountain View. That there's no confusion.
Mr. Reed.
And so I'm gonna keep Patrick nearby, because some of it will be things that he can provide. But just for sake of context, back in 2018, the board had considered making, or actually had voted to implement certain tiers within the Mountain View area. The area that on the map it says proposed INDP was rezoned as the MV Regional Entertainment District. When the property owners learned of that, they came and voiced their displeasure with the county's unilateral rezoning of that area to a regional entertainment. Between that time and today, the property owners there, various people within the county, have looked at what can be present there that is somewhat consistent with what's there, but also providing a path forward for what we want to see in that area. And I believe there are some trips to, I want to say College Park or other areas to look at some of the development in that area for their industrial parks, as well as the office park. So looking at some of the standards there for the quality of what they have there, the property owners and various members of the county have discussed how do we move forward from what the rezoning was to the entertainment district to keep kind of what's there, but also plan for what's going on in the future. So we're doing a little bit of both things, and I can turn it back over to Patrick for him to talk a little bit about kind of what the overall development standards would be for that area, but that's kind of the big picture of where we are with that, if that answers your question, Commissioner.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, do you need to hear anything further, Commissioner, from Mr. Ajiki on this?
I don't, I'm clear. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. GK and Mr. Reed.
All right, Mr. Ajiki, don't go too far. Next up is proposed new public sign notices.
Yes, good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. I'm going to use a presentation to kind of capture where we are about the signs. Our signs are aging or really aged and actually falling apart. It used to take 2 staff members to put up a sign. It looked ugly. It didn't represent what we're preaching that we want to be. So we, last December, the board approved to change, to remove from the zoning code the issue of size about sign, and that got approved. We also presented a layout of the new sign that the board, rightfully so, told us that it was cluttered to kind of simplify it, to make it more readable at a driving distance. That we have done. So we are coming today to show you what we came up with, and there is an urgent need to get these things manufactured and printed for us because we don't really have enough signs. Some of the signs we have, we've been writing over it over years, and people are complaining they are not quite that readable or legible. So, what we had on the left was what we showed you in December. And you asked us to simplify it. And we went really for what zoning really calls for, to go for what the request is, the purpose, the date of when this thing's gonna happen. And if you look at these 2 signs, the one on the left, which is the new sign layout that our response to your request, looks really much easier to read at driving speeds. That's what we have done. This is the ZAG signs that end up for the VOC also. The Board of Zoning Appeals sign also, as you can see, the right side is kind of cluttered, and we kind of simplify it, real simple, request purpose, and the date of the meeting. This is what I was talking about the dilapidated, old-looking sign that we have. It is not representative of who or what we've been talking about. So, that is what we came to get approval. It's not going to be on the agenda, it's just an approval to give us the green light to go ahead and order the signs.
Okay, well, does anybody have a question or concern about what?
I do.
Please.
I do. Hambrick.
Commissioner Hambrick.
Mr. EGK, thank you, and those signs look much better. The problem I have is the way the signs are positioned on the road. They face traffic. You know, I mean, you got to be riding, looking, to the side, trying to read it as you're passing. Hopefully with the new signs, we can have them double-sided, like you mentioned, but have them like you do the campaign signs. You read them as you're approaching, and if you turn back, you can read it again. It's not looking at, people don't have to stop in front of the signs to read it. You have them put up where we can read it when we are approaching the sign and once we pass the sign, and if we're coming from either side of the road. So if we would please do that, and I think that has to do with whoever is putting those signs out. That would truly help.
And
Help
Commissioner,
me anyway.
and Commissioner, the signs are double-sided.
Okay.
Yeah, they are double-sided, so you can read it from either side.
Coming or going?
I got a question.
Yes.
Is there a
Commissioner.
reason that the logo is in the bottom left-hand corner versus the top,
Uh,
right? Can you pull it back up, please? Either one would work. And it may or may not work, but I just want us to maybe take a look at it. And see that we've done in the past. And the reason I'm saying that is because as you're reading, you read from left to right. And I'm glad to see the logo there, but I'm just interested in seeing if the space to the top right would allow for it to be there. And that way it'll give you more room for the phone number and the address, because those two items the font is still a little bit small. And I think there's an opportunity to utilize your space just a little bit more with your font. Just a thought.
I think that's a good idea, yeah.
We will print with logos on the top and push the text down.
No. You don't have to push it down. What I'm saying is you're gonna put it up at that top right. You really don't even have to push it down that much. But the way it's written right now, as you see, it's almost like it's typewritten. But I hate to refer to billboards or signs. You want to think about what are they looking at, what are they seeing? And the way it's reading now is like it's all just same typewritten. Just make it a little bit fatter, make it a little bit more easier to read. Because otherwise, what catches my eye is that colorful logo, and I'm driving by, I don't even see the rest of it yet. But the address, if I see this a little bit bigger and the logo to the right, I may be able to pay a little bit more attention to it. And it may work, may not work, just a thought.
We will consult with our communication department to see what the best way to space out things.
And when
I'm
you,
glad you said that, because I hope we make these signs big enough. They're not gonna be as small as that Census 2020 sign, is it? That was a very tiny. And I got pretty decent eyes, but I can't read it.
and if you don't mind, once you rearrange things, just send it out to all the commissioners so we can take a look at it.
Okay.
And can we get a mock-up of it, a visual?
That's why I just
This is
said,
the mock-up.
oh, you want a physical one?
Oh, well, they can give us an actual mock-up so that we
Or the
can
dimensions.
see instead of just looking at it in this capacity.
Well, she wants to see a physical one. She don't want the dimensions.
Well, let me ask you this. How many emails are you getting when these signs have been going out?
Not a whole lot, because of most of the people who respond to zoning items are mostly regulars
Okay.
who actually show up. Once in a while, you have a neighborhood that is close by, but mostly it's not like you have big spikes.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. For me, it's just the font size. We've got a lot of white space here that's going unused. And we should be able to utilize it with the date and the time. I'd say get rid of the email address, move the logo up to the top left so folks know that this is county business. And we give them what it is, the date and the place. Date, time, and place. That's it.
Okay.
Because they're not gonna email. You know what they do, Commissioner Davis? They call us. So I don't know. We get a lot of emails and a lot of phone calls.
And that's my rationale behind just taking the email off. It's good, but I don't think it's going to be used much.
Right. They're gonna contact us as commissioners, so.
Anything else?
Got it? No. Thank
It
you.
looks like the print on the old sign is larger than the print on the left. So maybe if we could, even with the print on the right, if it could be a little, if it could be a little larger than that on the left.
Yeah, we can make it larger. And we're definitely going to consult with communication and have simplified more and move the logo around and print almost like the actual size so that you guys will see it.
Yeah, go ahead and send it to us, a mock-up, just email it to us.
Okay.
But maybe at the next board meeting, maybe bring us a mock-up of it,
Okay.
as Commissioner Franklin Warner requested.
Okay.
Anything else from anybody?
Good work on that.
All right, thank you.
On our next,
Thank you,
our
Mr.
work
Ajiki.
session,
Thank you.
Chairman?
our next work session, can we start tackling some of that zoning? I have a couple questions with that.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, what was your last statement?
It's okay. is in reference to what we've been talking about for a while. I had a meeting today with all of the board members of District 3 that serve on various boards, and one of the things that came up is they're seeing a lot of recommendations to move like gas pumps from the front to the back and so forth. And it was asked, why can't we just look at that as a board and come up with what we want to do so they don't have to keep coming before those boards for variances. So I do want us to take a look at maybe tweaking some of those items that we have consistently made concessions on so that we can begin to standardize our practice. And then also I want to see at some point the process to be outlined by Mr. Ajiki and his department on the zoning process. After 4 years of being in office, at times I'm still a bit confused, especially when I get calls from citizens about receiving letters from the county in an attorney's envelope. So I just would like for us to put on the agenda to have a work session surrounding zoning and maybe some questions in the process and procedures.
Okay, we'll do.
Mr. Jiggy said we'll do, but at the same time, so we do make sure that we discuss these items, Commissioner. And we'll talk about it in a couple of minutes or so, but yes, have those items entered on minute track, and that'll reassure that we have a discussion on it.
No offense, I will try, but I'll submit it to folks to be presented. Thank you.
Okay. All right, anything else in reference to the signs? All right, let's go to Commissioner Resolution Ownership, which is an item that I had entered on to minute track. And basically, that's real simple that, as we all know, any commissioner can add anything to the agenda. And I agree with what the citizens were asking us for. They basically want to know when a commissioner adds an item to the agenda, that basically we take ownership of that by listing the commissioner's name underneath the resolution, particular resolution. So I support that, but of course this is up for discussion, and just want to see what you think about it.
Is that like what we're doing right now?
Yes, well, according to this agenda. So if there's something in reference to, let's say, transit that Franklin Warner wants on there, then we would just put that item on the agenda and just put Commissioner Franklin Warner under. That keeps people from asking us when they come up here, who proposed this resolution.
I agree.
I think that should be the same for everybody then. If we're going to do that, then items that come from the administration should be denoted as administration via Chairman Turner. And I think that's not a bad idea. I've even discussed the fact that there's communication that goes out with the entire board on it that's not necessarily coming from us. And looking at, again, best practices, if it comes from the chairman's office, it should be the chairman. If it doesn't require a vote from this board, it didn't come from the board. It comes from that entity.
That's correct. I'm sorry, Commissioner.
So I think that we should do both. If that's what
Yeah, I don't have a
we do,
problem.
those fields.
I don't have a
No.
problem with that, because if
I'm
it
just
comes
saying, I
from
don't know how everyone
administration.
feels, but I don't have an issue with it.
Yeah, the administration is the board of the department heads, and like I said, I don't have a problem listing anything comes out of my office under my name.
Okay.
Any other comments on it?
No, I just think people need to know that there are some items that don't require a board vote that come directly from the chief administrator.
Absolutely.
So we don't keep getting phone calls about it, because we can't answer those questions.
Yeah, and that's, again, a good point, because there's some commissioner-sponsored resolutions where they call me and I don't know anything about it as well. So that would clearly define who they need to contact should they have any additional questions. So appreciate that point. All right. If there's nothing else on that, we'll move to the next. Commissioner Board appointment selection for the boards that we have. So this is also something that I asked for. And basically, I just wanted to get the commissioner's take on the way our resolution that we passed, I think it was last meeting, is that any boards that are five member boards, each commissioner would have a selection or appointee to that board. We do have some boards that are 7 and 9, So therefore, my proposal would be simply that each board would get, board member would get one appointment, and the other two or other three appointments would be at large, where any board member can make that appointment. So again, I'm asking, and to keep things unbiased, I would ask that the clerk would designate board appointments of 5 or more, or 5 to each commissioner, to make sure that everybody is getting a selection. Any comments on that? Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
You do have one board that has 11, so everybody would need to have 2 appointments, and then you can
And then
have
one at large.
One at large. But what I'd like to do for those that have 2 or 3 appointments is to contact the commissioner and see which one they want to be their one, and then pass the other ones out. Because some people have 3 or 4 appointments on one board.
Well, why don't we just, those who, once you find out if, let's say if I have 3 appointments, then I send that to me, and then I will let you know I will stay with this one appointment here, and then you can filter or recycle the others to either at large or to one of the other commissioners.
Okay.
Did I miss something? I may have, forgive me. I thought it was moving forward as we begin to appoint those to board. We're actually removing those?
No. It's for the ones, if we have a 5-member board that are currently have been selected and sitting on that board, if I have 2 picks on that board, and each other commissioner, one commissioner is not sponsoring somebody. So what she would do is, after I say, okay, I want this, I'm gonna stay with this person, then whatever that other person is, that commissioner that's being left out, will be assigned when that reappointment comes back up for that commissioner to make that appointment.
Got it.
It's not changing or reappointing anybody.
Got it.
Okay.
While we're talking about the boards, and maybe this will be another work session where we can talk about some kind of compensation. I know some boards, you cannot receive pay or whatever, but because I appointed somebody recently, and they were told that they would, get some kind of compensation, and that's not the case. So can we have that discussion at some point? So
Yeah,
can find out
we can, and we already have I think Madam Clerk sent out on several occasions those boards that are paid and those who can't, whether it's statutory or not. But to your point, Commissioner, there are boards where they are not allowed to receive compensation. But I think we, at once upon a time, had worked that out where, as a matter of fact, we even assigned additional pay or compensation to some board members, as well as established a pay for at least 1 or 2 other boards. But we can find that sheet and send it back out if we're going to have another conversation in that area.
Okay, and on those boards that cannot receive compensation, if the attorneys or somebody in legal could check and see, can they be reimbursed for their mileage or something back to and for to meetings?
Which,
We'll look into that and let you know.
Oh, okay.
but usually these are voluntary boards. So I would think that if it's not for training or travel, but he'll take a look, Mr. Reed, take a look and confer.
I would
back
like
with
to
us.
take that conversation a step further and require folks that are serving on boards to attend these training sessions within their individual capacities. For instance, the library board, they have training sessions, the housing authority, I know they have to do it. But some of these boards, I don't know that people really understand what they're responsible for. And that, again, that's one of the reasons that I had a meeting today with all the board members in District 3, so that people have a clear understanding that you represent this county as a board member on one of those various boards. So I think that that's extremely important, so that we don't keep running into some of the things we run into in the past. And at some point, I still am hopeful that the board will come up with a process or procedure for consideration of board members, if not holistically as a body, a voting body of a member of 5, but at least individually. I think that there's a great opportunity for us to really leverage what is happening through various boards such as economic development, the housing authority, even the transit advisory groups. It's important that we begin to understand their authority, understand what they're responsible for, understand how they fit in within the puzzle to move our county forward, and also be able to understand the importance of communication with us as board members. So I'm just hopeful for that, and if I got to put it in minute track, I guess I will.
Okay, anything else? All right, next up for discussion is the rental occupational tax. Commissioner Gregory asked for that. You want to take the lead on that, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, I talked to COO Stanford yesterday, and this could have been combined with the item of the trash pickup.
Would you like to
Again,
hold it until we get to that one?
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right, next up is process and procedures for placing items on the agenda and works for the work section. And that is item, I asked to be placed on the agenda. Simply, I want to make sure that there was no issues or concerns about what I sent out to the board members back on August 12th, outlining 3 procedures. And basically, I'll go over them right quick. On the Wednesday before the work session, all commissioners' requests should be placed in minute track by your constituent aide by 5 p.m., but no later than 12 noon on Thursday. So the agenda can be generated and posted on Friday. Number 2 was on Thursday before the work session, the clerk will send out to the commissioners a copy of the items in minute track for the next meeting. And then lastly, the third point is there will be 2 agendas that you receive, the work session items and the items for the next regular meeting. So I know that there was at one point, and I know this is the first time out, where the clerk had to add some of the items into the minute track. So that just makes me think that, well, I guess that's a question then. If the aides are not familiar with minute track, then let us know that so we can make sure that we train them how to enter items into the minute track. And the second thing is that for them to enter into minute track, what you are wanting to speak about ensures that it's processed in a timely manner and entered the way you want it to be entered in terms of what you want to cover for that meeting. So are there any questions or concerns about that?
No, only thing I will say, I'm going to speak up on this. In the meetings such as this one or a board meeting, they constitute the ability for, by code, for us to be able to add anything to an agenda by direction, because that is a legal, that's a meeting at that particular time. So I don't mind having the minute track as something that you're asking, but at the end of the day, it's what's voted on by this board that is required. And so therefore, if any, according to statute, if any of us as board members ask for the clerk, or even whether it's our aide or whoever it may be, or Chuck Reed or anybody else to have something presented, then they should be able to present that. And that was the reason I asked that question in email format as well. I think that there's a great opportunity for us to deal with some issues that may come up beyond the date and the time you're speaking of. For instance, this week, we were asked a question about what we're doing for housing to help people in that space. I think that if we leave ourselves confound, it won't allow us to be able to deal with things as we're moving into the process of setting the official agenda for the meeting itself. So that's my only take on it.
Okay, some of that what you said was kind of hard to hear. You sound just a little muffled, so I don't.
I'm sorry.
But we heard it, but you're just a little muffled. But at the same time, I hear what you're saying, and you know, as we continue to add on to the duties and responsibilities of the clerks, you know, part of what a constituent aide does is to perform computer tasks and that's within their job description, which requires a broad knowledge of a variety of standard computer applications. So, I mean, they will do as they're told to do. That's first and foremost, and they do understand that. But I don't want to overload them, especially without getting compensated. That's just not fair to them.
When you say
Commissioner-
them, who are speaking, can you define them, sir?
I'm sorry?
Who's
The
them?
clerks.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't think the issue is whether or not our aides could do that, sir. I just think it's not whether the code allows for us to add something to speak on. I
No,
don't think it's
there's
that-
not a problem about adding anything. So again, you were muffled, so I may have misunderstood you. So I
Okay,
apologize
okay,
if I
all
did.
right.
But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that point was clear. Then, you know, it's a request. Every commissioner is the clerk's boss. But at the end of the day, you know, we want our employees to be able to work in an environment where they're not being stressed or workload is put on them that's more than they're able to bear. That was my only point, and that's coming from me. Any other questions? But lastly with that is also if, I believe that they all are familiar with MiniTrack, but if not, please have them speak up so we can make sure that they are familiarized with it. Next up is the Development Authority Executive Director position in the IGA. Again, something that I asked to be placed on. Basically, real simply, I know Commissioner Hambrick brought up the question about the letter we received from the Development Authority and how we have not interviewed. So my question is simply the board's desire to move forward with interviewing or not. And I'm not seeking a vote, but just your thoughts on whether or not there is a need to hold a meeting with Mr. Larry Vincent, who has been picked by the Development Authority Board to be their executive director. And I'm just looking for conversation from the rest of the board.
My thought is there is not. And I base this off the condition that we are bringing our Economic Development Department back in-house. And since we're bringing it back in-house and we are going to have a director and that we've openly begin to go out and seek applications for, there's no need for us to interview him unless he has applied for that position.
Anybody else?
I just think we need to be careful of what was just stated. This is a work session, and that has not been voted on by the board, has it?
No,
He's
we're not
giving
talking-
his
I'm giving my
opinion.
opinion. That's
I
not
asked
talking
for-
about
But the
voting.
statement was, we're doing something. And I
Well,
think
that's
that
fact,
we-
though.
That's a fact.
That's a fact, that we are definitely bringing all folks back into house.
I
No,
didn't say
no,
all
we're-
folks.
we're-
I said I said the unit, the Economic Development Unit is coming back, not the Development
sorry,
Authority.
say it.
The Economic Development Department, we're bringing back in-house. Now, what that entails or what that is made up of, I'm not gonna go into that. It could change. We don't know.
All right, another part of that is the IGA. There was comments made about the IGA with the Development Authority. So what's the board's take on that? Because we did, through a formal meeting, voted on our end to dissolve the IGA with the Development Authority. And again, I think Commissioner Hambrick had some concerns about it. Commissioner, would you like to elaborate?
No, the IGA has been your thing. I haven't had any questions about the IGA.
Okay. All right.
Well, let me ask this question, because we did vote as a board to dissolve the IGA, is that correct?
That's correct.
Back in, what was it,
A while
a
ago.
while ago. Has the Development Authority gotten back to us with their position on it?
Well, I think their position's pretty evident. They have not voted to
They-
dissolve.
And that's why I asked that question, to make it part.
Can I go back? I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, you were getting ready to talk.
No, I
started
wasn't. Go
talking.
ahead, Commissioner. Go ahead.
Can we go back to where we put the pin in it? Because I remember driving from work, from Athens, to come to a meeting between the Development Authority and our board. And all of us arrived to that meeting thinking that there was going to be a facilitator there to work between the two boards so that we could come together so that we could start to move our county forward. And when we left from that meeting, the facilitator was not there. And we all agreed at that time that we would bring in a facilitator and that we would have a discussion about where we are going. And I believe the board members that were present, I believe there was 4 of us that were present, if I recollect correctly, as my grandmama used to say. And then also the Development Authority was there. And that's the last bit of communication that I pretty much stopped at as a commissioner, and I was hopeful that that would happen. Because I think the citizens were hopeful that would happen, because that way we can discuss the IGA, how to move forward. And then there was even questions, what is the strategic plan of the county and the authority? For me, I believe that those are true foundations before we can begin discussing anybody else, moving anything in-house. I think we need to go back where we stopped and where we all were at a point of agreement.
Commissioner, if you remember, we did hire a mediator. The mediator did contact each commissioner. Do you recall speaking to her?
I do, but we were supposed to come back together. There was no follow-up. I do remember that.
Right.
And the last thing I remember, there was no additional follow-up.
Right.
I do remember that.
Mr. Stanford, Mr. COO.
I thought part 2 was we were gonna all get together once they had that interview process.
Yeah, were you able to obtain any additional information in terms of where we left off at that? Like I know that the mediator, she spoke to each and every, I guess to everybody. Did she provide any kind of findings or conclusion in terms of whether or not a meeting was going to be feasible?
Thank her, Chairman and Board. I think the mediator, after speaking with each of the board members and the Development Authority members, it was ascertained that there was no interest in having a joint meeting between the two boards. That's what the facilitator came to the conclusion on.
Can you please forward me that findings and that information?
The information she provided was a joint meeting, an individual meeting with then Chair Eldrin Bell and Chairman Turner. She did not reduce she didn't reduce any of her findings to writing. She had a separate conversation with both chairmen of the board as to what was the willingness of the respective board members.
So maybe I had it confused, because I thought that we agreed in that meeting, I hope another commissioner can at least speak up, that we would do this process and that we would come back together. It was not, and I don't remember during that meeting that it was determined that they would see if there is feasibility for us to come together. So I think there's a gap in communication there, some kind of way.
And Commissioner Warner,
Sometimes mommy.
I forget a lot, but my last recollection is the same, that we were supposed to get back together.
Okay. What else?
That's it.
No, that's not it.
That's
we
it.
need to make sure that we come back together.
No, we can circle back around. We can circle
All
back
right.
around. There's not a problem with it. But it was communicated to everybody what the extent of that conversation was. But I'm not going to sit here and go back and forth in terms of, he said, she said. I do recall sharing that information, but it's not a problem for us to circle back around with the mediator and bring everybody together. Anything else?
I'm sorry, I gotta say this.
Yes.
We're elected. We don't have the luxury of choosing not to meet. Of course, there are times that we feel like we don't want to meet. I get that, but for the sake of our citizens, for our county, and as not only a one that represents a body of people that expect me as their commissioner to do more, we cannot take the thought process that, well, there's no need for us to come together. We can't afford that. If we keep doing that, all these opportunities are going to keep passing us by. All of this opportunity, we are ripe for the taking, And we've got to do what we need to do and dig in deep. And I want to say this, just doubt ourselves for a minute and remember the people we represent and have the hard conversations and make the hard decisions. And I'm preaching to the choir, including myself.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that, but at the same time, I don't feel like there's any kind of missed opportunities because dialogue is still continuing. Whether or not we use that as a format for cooperation in the spirit of making sure that we move this county forward. But whether or not you constantly have a meeting or have a meeting on this topic or whatever topic doesn't mean that the work's still not getting done. But in light of what we're discussing about this meeting between the two boards, yeah, we'll make that happen. That's not a problem.
Thank you, sir. And I'll
No
clarify
problem.
this opportunity. Every business that bypass us and go to Fayette, Henry, or any other county is a missed opportunity.
Yeah,
We got to come together.
but we also get plenty of businesses that come to Clayton County when other counties missed out on that opportunity as well. So it's a two-way street, but your point is duly noted. All right, last discussion point is trash pickup.
6 and 9 collectively.
Okay,
What is it?
6 and 9 collectively.
Yeah, 6 and 9 collectively, but Commissioner Gregory, you're about to say something.
yes, sir. I was just gonna talk about trash pickup. We brought this up at a previous meeting, and I just hope it doesn't become political, because it is definitely something that we need to consider in this county. I am even willing, if we put it on a ballot in March, if the people wanna vote on it, that's fine. On the agenda, you also see about that, occupational tax. If there's just such a big outcry against mandatory trash pickup, I'm proposing that we look at some way that we can collect some money so that we can keep this county clean. Right now, according to the tax commissioner, there are about 37,000 single-family homes that do not have a homestead exemption. So, we can just basically consider that they're either investors or people who are renting out their houses. So those people would be charged that occupational tax so that we can at least collect money to keep the county clean. But I do believe that the best option for Clayton County is the mandatory trash pickup. I know when we visited this issue the last time, we briefly talked about perhaps there's a bid, for just split the county up into 4 districts. And you have your garbage pickups, they just all bid out, and you have one service for each district or whatever, before different trash services. And as Commissioner Warner said in the last meeting or meeting before, this helps us when we get these calls from the citizens about these big trucks coming in the neighborhood every day of the week. And also, the trash trucks are spilling trash everywhere. We have no control over it right now, and they just leave trash, in our neighborhoods and so forth. If they pick up the dumpster and they leave trash on the streets, they're not gonna pick it up. But the main thing I do see, I think we've made a great step with putting the code enforcement over under the refuge. So I think this mandatory trash, we need to do something. And again, I know we've got, 2 or 3 emails from people since we discussed it. But even if we put it on a ballot in March, I'm open for that. In order to, I hope the main thing is we don't even need to give the people an option of putting it on their tax bill, because we know nobody wants their taxes going up or their mortgage payments and so forth. That wouldn't even be an option. So, and I think that scared so many people the last time. But right now, this is something we need. Mr. Reed, we've been dealing with this Family Dollar issue. I just happened to go to the Family Dollar one day riding through, still trying to inspect it. And I saw a gentleman just parked there, taking out his bags of trash and putting them there. People are not getting the trash services, the trash pickup. Even now, the Dollar General, the Family Dollar, people are still just bringing their trash there. If they had a dumpster at their house, they would not have to go throw all their trash everywhere. We could also, within those trash services, there could be a little bit more fee for these big pickups where people throw the sofas along the roads or in a quiet place in the middle of the night. Perhaps in that proposal or whatever it goes out to bid to the services, that could be included, extra $5 or whatever, if you got a big sofa or, 10 or whatever for a refrigerator. And, that would help us so much. But I do hope that we can come to some decision about mandatory trash so that we can move forward to cleaning up the county.
Well, let me say this, Commish. Yes, you are absolutely right. We have to do something about our trash issues in the county, and mandatory trash pickup is one good option that we should explore and have been exploring, as well as a transfer station somewhere on the north end of the county. Instead of them taking trash to a Family Dollar, whoever, they can take it to the transfer station and drop and throw it there.
What end of the county? I'm sorry. What end of the county?
On the north end, we're looking at 2 or 3 sites, the Solid Waste Authority Board.
I think that we got,
Hopefully that's not on the northwest side.
Well, we have a meeting on this Thursday, and
Well, I can just let you know.
I'll have more to report to this board after that meeting.
Well, we don't want any protests in Clayton County, I don't think.
Protests about a transfer station.
We tried and see.
You'll be leading the charge, right, Commissioner?
Not really, no, there are plenty that will be leading the charge. I don't have to, I'll sit back.
Okay.
Watch.
Well, getting back to the mandatory trash pickup, there are a whole lot of questions that need to be answered that the citizens will have, and that's one reason why I asked that each board of commissioner hold public town hall meetings with the citizens so they can hear from them, so they can talk. Some of the questions that they had last time was, will you have options such as recycling, front door, back door? There's a number of questions that they have. And to your point, Commissioner Gregory, I favor a referendum in March as well. And I believe that we can use this time between now and then to educate and to get those questions answered before the vote. But my biggest question would be the billing. How would the billing be handled? And that's not really something that I guess we can discuss now, but something that we've been exploring on the Solid Waste Management Board. But we all know if it go on your property tax, your your mortgage will go up. We're looking at the water authority and what would be associated with that. You could throw out something, but it's usually not as easy as it seems. So
Right.
We are following up with those and exploring those other options as well.
And don't forget, again, we know from the last time, property taxes is a no-no. So let's not even make it political and start scaring people by even, making that an option. I know right now, even with the ambulance building, it's an outside biller who does that for, the ambulance service and so forth. I don't think this would be just so difficult. And, perhaps even we move forward now, perhaps, the COO and his analysts, they can start working on something like, working on presentation. And, I just don't, and have it presented perhaps more from staff than from commissioners, to take the politics out of it. Because this is a very serious thing in this county.
Yeah, but we know it'll be sponsored.
I have a question.
It'll be sponsored by the commissioners. I'm talking about town hall meeting. I'm not saying that you need to lead the charge on it. What I'm saying is to set it up because that's, your district and the people do want to hear from their commissioners. So whether it's staff presenting or the commissioners presenting, I think there's a need for the citizens to, as Commissioner Franklin Warner said, make those tough decisions and to speak to the citizens which they represent, because they want to hold us accountable and they have every right to do so. But there was one question that you said about the billing.
The ambulance building?
Yeah, you can bill. We can bill all day long, but there has to be a customer service component to that as well. So would that be in-house or would that be, how would we
Whoever
address?
receives the contract is gonna be responsible for that. And then on top of it, then they're gonna have to report it to us. Can I interject for a minute?
Go
I
ahead.
don't mean, but do y'all know how old this conversation is? I'm 46 years old, and there are a lot of people who come here like myself. I'm Georgia born, but Florida raised. These people come from New York, from other places, from city of Atlanta, from even the city of Jonesboro, and they sitting here wondering, like, what is this conversation we're having about being concerned about having mandatory trash pickup? That's all I've never ever known. That's all they've ever known. So I want to clarify, my concern the first time around was that we didn't have enough information to share. I'm all about making sure, as Commissioner Gregory said, we take the politics out of it and that you present to the people either scenario A, B, or C, or if it's just A or B or one scenario. But just have a town hall meeting to see what people think. But the bottom line is we know there's an issue with trash. And if we keep doing the same thing, expecting different results, then that is the definition of what is insanity. The trash is not going to get picked up on its own. We're going to keep spending taxpayer dollars using resources to go pick it up for somebody else. Now, whether we decide to use a billing company or use, like Commissioner Gregory said, to send it out and bid it out, that's just something simple that we can handle. But if somebody lived in the city of Lovejoy or Jonesboro, or let's say hypothetically we were like Fulton, where there is no unincorporated places of Fulton, they would have mandatory trash pickup. The other deal I want to mention is we have grown in our populace, and we don't even know where we're going to be with this new census. So we can no longer do business as usual, as Ms. Ambles like to say, and pretend that these problems are going to go away magically, because our populace has increased to the point that we've got to make some of the decisions that others have made that have a population of our size and even larger. So I'm all for putting it on the referendum. I really am. I think it's a good idea. But then the question I have for this board, what happens if it comes back that the few people come out and say, well, I don't want it? You know, because one thing I've learned, especially when it comes to voting, it's very difficult to get people to get out and vote. And a lot of the folks that are calling us and complaining that we got documentation of, Mr. Chair, are the ones that are saying, why y'all don't have trash pickup? I just want it clear, concise, whether it's through the water authority, however we do it. I think that it needs to be done. The information needs to be consistent, and we need to bite the bullet. And then the other point I do need to make, it'll allow us to help businesses, because the businesses are treated unfairly because of the dumping. And there's opportunities for us to be able to make sure that we're supporting them through this process as well.
Let me mention one, I think I'm unmuted. If you all recall, we've had these meetings. I think the chairman mentioned have a meeting in each district. We've done that. And we had some information that was compiled. I don't know who has that and all, but why keep spinning our wheels?
Exactly.
Good. Go ahead.
Well, let me say this only comes from me. This is going to be a board decision. It's going to be predicated on my one vote, as everybody has to vote their conscience. But at the end of the day, for me, if I'm on vote up or down, I want to make sure that I'm considering what the citizens who elected me think about how we move forward in this space. So that's the only thing. That's just my belief. Hold on a second. That's my belief, and I always want to put the citizens in that space where I want to hear from them, even if I have to vote against them or disagree with them. At least I will have heard from them and formulated a decision that I feel like I can live with, and it was in the best interest.
What we found out before is that I know in District 2, the people that wanted, a lot of them did not come out. We had the same group of people going from district to district.
Yes.
No. So, what's to prevent that from happening again? Because folk are telling me, we need something. I'm tired of picking up the bag. A lady was just at our meeting last week talking about the same thing, about dumping bags being dumped, sofas being dumped, and all that. And that's what I hear up here.
Nobody's arguing the point. We all know that there's a need.
Yes.
But we have to move.
I just don't want us to keep going over and over
Well,
with these.
and like I said, I don't think anybody,
Vote come and take over your meetings.
no one is arguing about the fact that we need trash to be picked up. The argument, it comes down to what's the method that is going to be used.
Exactly.
And that's what we have to begin to present.
Exactly.
Thank you.
I think it's pretty much a consensus here that we have to do something about our trash. What's the method of pickup? And to what Commissioner Gregory was stating, and I'll state this to you all, I'm not for just having one supplier in a district pick up trash. I already have trash pickup. So why should I have to change? I don't want to create a monopoly in a district where you only have one person providing the service. So that's one of the issues to me that we need to look at. But it comes down to who do we use? How are they being paid? Who's collecting? Is each individual collecting, or are we sending it into a collection department in-house? Don't know. But I think the problem here is we've got to come up with a method. What happens if we put it on referendum and it's passed and we don't have a method? Then we're sitting back in the same position that we are in today.
No, we already have some options that has been drawn up. The collection, the stumbling block for us has been, how do we collect? And what's the penalties if you don't pay your trash?
Can we
Because
use
somebody
best
has to
practice
impose.
of that in other areas?
Say again. We have.
Can
We
we
looked at the
use
best practices and models from
Jonesboro.
Gwinnett County. No, we needed a bigger model to look at.
Jonesboro, Lovejoy, they right
Those
here.
are the small cities. We looked at Gwinnett County.
Yes, great.
Where is there was a lot of complications with them getting their trash pickup done. But the biggest hurdle for us again has been, how do we bill, and when somebody does not pay, what's going to be the repercussions of them doing so? But
And once
again,
again, that part, we can, I would hope that when we leave out of here this evening, out of this meeting, we can say to Mr. COO and his staff, if they would pull things together for us, as far as, the documents and some possible answers to some of these questions and so forth that we're having about the billing, comparative billing to what the ambulance billing is doing now, and bring it to us. I mean, we know Gwinnett flopped because at first they went out there wanting to put on everybody's tax bill. We know that flop. Let's not do that. And we know from before that people don't want that. So let's don't go out here and just set ourselves up. We're asking them to develop a plan. So in case, and then if this board votes for a referendum in March, then we'll be ready if it passes.
yeah, we're not looking.
Present the plan to the board for everybody to hear and to see at that particular time. That's the other.
Yeah, we're not looking for it to be on tax bills. That's foregone conclusion at this point. If y'all remember, I sent you out some information from a Solid Waste Authority meeting that we had, where we worked with Jacobs in the rollout of mandatory trash pickup. We had a timetable to get it done. And if you don't recall, please go back and review the material. But it was a well thought out plan. And like I said, Jacobs Engineering Company is one who orchestrated or planned it out along with the Solid Waste Authority Board. And it was very concise and succinct, but the issue was, how do we bill? So there are some questions that still need to be answered, and to whoever brought it up, to your point, yeah, the staff will be working, as they have been, with the Solid Waste Authority Board in terms of coming up with some other options in terms of the billing. And we will see what's going on with the fire department's billing practices and see how we can maybe employ some of those practices as well. But again, we have to find a way to, if they don't pay their trash, what's going to be our method of dealing with those people, as well as some form of customer service. Because even if it's the trash pickup people have a customer service department, if it's coming from the county, they're going to call the county. They're going to call us. So are we going to sit here and take all those calls, or are we going to create a department?
I don't know about other commissioners, but I take complaints right now from individual companies, and the citizens are upset that I can't do anything about it. I won't call out
Exactly.
one person, but
We can't do
some
that.
of them work for the county and get upset. But let me say this. I think that we need to place this as a work session and have that presentation that you emailed us, present it to the board so that we can begin where that presentation left off. I got this one thing that I gotta let you know. You've been making a statement about as if we're not hearing from citizens. I want everybody to hear this because I think there's a misconception. We as commissioners, or at least me, I hear from citizens every day about how they feel about trash on the phone, through email, and we communicate with them. So when you say that we need to get input from citizens, that's all I do. That's all we do. So I think that that needs to go out, that we're constantly hearing from our citizens. Because somebody shows up at a meeting, like the other commissioners suggested earlier, does not negate the voice of those who have to work and can't show up to the meeting and decide to email us or call us.
Nobody's underscoring that the citizens are calling you or any other commissioner. There's simply more citizens that are out there than just those citizens that are making direct contact for whatever reason. Some people may not want to speak up, but they might want to show up for a meeting. And truly, that's your discretion whether or not you would even want to hold a meeting or not. But let me just say this though, or ask this. Let's not have this discussion on the next work session, but the one after that. That would give us more time to prepare a more thorough presentation for you. Is
Yes,
anybody
and
opposed
remember,
to that?
data collection happens in many ways, in many capacities.
The what?
Let's grow and expound what data collection is. It's not about just a meeting, it's data collection.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You're so awesome.
Mr. Chair, one of the things I just wanted to, reiterate too, when we talk about chances are those of us, who live in the homes we're paying for, we have a trash service. And, and we're really probably dealing with more of the 37,000 who don't have a homestead exemption, who investors or people are renting a house and so forth. So when you talk about how we're going to collect, we've got to find a way, and I'll be anxious to see that report from Jacobs, but we got to find a way to make sure that address is billed, that owner is billed, and not that renter. And that's up to them to pass it on to the renter and whatever they pay in the rent. And that's what we're targeting. And I know we got all kinds of situations. There's a lady right now, I can just hear her now. She's had a deal with a trash service for 10 years, and she only pays $100 a year. So, so she doesn't want to change. But of course, we just can't satisfy her because she's got a deal and let the county just stay dirty. So, but thank you. That would be great if we can have that presentation at the session after next.
I guess my question in regards to that, Commissioner Gregory, is if she's doing everything to keep her property clean, why should she have to pay for someone else's? I mean, that's a question, and it could be rhetorical. We don't really have to answer that, but we've got to begin to contemplate that as well.
Right.
I'm gonna say what section code, Chuck, what's that section code? 2-something that says we must make a decision for the good of the whole of the county when there arises an issue within the county. And so I'm like you, the senior citizen, maybe there's an opportunity for a senior citizen discount.
Exactly.
But
Or
we got decisions for the good of the whole that are gonna benefit the county as a whole. And that's the charge and the oath we all took.
right. And even if we did something like we talked about with the 4 districts, perhaps now whatever company gets District 1, they got probably a lot more customers now. So, hey, we may pay less than what we pay now. So I think
Well, let me just say, yeah, there were several models, one in each district, and then there was a north side and south side company as well, because there are some smaller companies that are not going to be able to meet the demand. But that was looked at as well. But that'll be in the next presentation.
thank you so much.
Yes. Anything else on this matter?
Uh,
Commissioner Hambrick?
Yeah, yes, not on that matter, Mr. Chairman, but in the beginning, you mentioned something about items on the agenda for the next board meeting.
Preliminary agenda?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
And I was looking at grants, and I know we don't have any detailed information now, but can anybody speak to that? There were two kinds of grants that
Which item
we
you
will be
looking at?
discussing or voting on for Tuesday's meeting.
What item are you looking at?
I think it was, oh gosh, hold on, let me pull it. I think it was 6 and 7. Hold on, let me pull it up right quick. Yes, item 6 and 7. YSA grant FY21, state grants 2021.
Mr. Reed, you can provide clarity.
If you're talking about the youth service grant, is that what you're talking about, Commissioner?
That, I think that's one of them, and then the other one is state grants.
Grant 2021. It's on the preliminary items.
What's the administrative number?
It's not on this, I just printed that for them.
I just want to know what grants.
The YSA grant, youth services grant, that was already approved by this board at the last board meeting, so that's going to be taken off. And I see there's one for library services, and there's a grant for police office, for the police department. I'm not sure which one you're talking about, but I can tell you what is on for both of those.
I'm interested in the state grants. What is that? What is that all about?
Which item is
I'm
that,
not
Commissioner?
sure.
That's number 7, I think.
All they got in there is
Library services? Okay, so the library services, if that's the one that you're referring to, it's actually the budget for the library staff, the library administrative staff, the director supplement, purchase of books and materials for the library system, and also their system services used for operational expenses.
Okay, but will we have an explanation on the regular agenda when the information comes out?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, that you mean as far as like what the purpose, rationale, all that kind of stuff?
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, yes, there'll be a synopsis as always placed on it, and we'll have Director Lett here as well too, or at least on Zoom to be able to clarify or answer any question you have.
Yeah, I just want to know which grants.
Okay.
Okay, and there's also, just so that you know, there's also another grant that's a Memorial Justice Assistance Grant that's been submitted by the police department. That's for up to 60 riot suits, 400 medical field kits, and 59 ballistic shields. And that's
Okay, I'm a little more familiar with that one, yeah.
Okay.
This just says state grants, I didn't know what was going on with that, okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anything else about any other member that you see? All right, if not, this will conclude our first work session.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
Commissioner
Not
Warner,
for
Franklin
the CARES
Warner.
Act, has anybody else received questions on that? Because I know it was submitted to us by Mr. COO. You referenced in an email about some funding possibly being used towards helping people with not being.
Oh, the question.
displaced from their homes.
Yeah,
Are you
thank
gonna
you.
bring that to us later?
Yeah, thank you for that. There has been some discussion as to whether we have any CARES money for assisting those people with mortgage assistance. We are looking to see how much money we may have. You have some further?
Board, you all also, and Patrick can speak a little bit more to it as well. I looked at what the city of Atlanta had done for their constituents. What they did is amend their ESG funding from HUD to set aside some money for rental assistance and stuff like that. You all did approve that a number of, I think twice, amend HUD to allow more CARES Act money for ESG as well. So you've already approved an increase in ESG funding to help with rental assistance and other CARES Act funds to be used for those purposes.
Commissioner.
Go ahead, Mr. Stanford.
So as Mr. Reed just alluded to, what you got in the justification report that I sent to the board, the 12.2, was really just the money allocated from the state. What Mr. Reed just alluded to was money from ESG and additional CARES money. We'll provide you another report to outline the details of what he just spoke to. So it's two different pools of money.
Awesome. Can we ask that maybe moving forward, we look at it from a subject item. Like, in other words, since we know that we're in the middle of this pandemic, even though there's money coming from different buckets, I know there was some confusion, at least for me, even when we approved some funding or something, not the most recent board meeting, but the board meeting before, there was a perception about what the approval was, because we had also received your additional information at that same time. So is there some way that you can go and kind of pull all that together to show what Clayton County's plan is in response to the pandemic? So it would have a bucket for state funding, opportunities for housing assistance, anything, so it all lives in one place and be presented concisely. For me, it'll help me have a better understanding. And then we're conveying information in a concise manner. I know that someone mentioned from the Housing Authority about some funding that was announced. And Mr. Chair, I don't know if you all got it, but just yesterday it was announced by the White House that funding was released to the state of Georgia to help with some of these calls that we're getting about unemployment. So we need to all keep on our radar to pay attention to that. Once again, whether it's our lobbyists or whoever, or us in our individual capacity, to ask our congressmen and whoever else how those funds are going to be received through the state, and then how soon are they going to be dispersed, who they're going to be dispersed to. I think that would be helpful as we move forward through this response of the pandemic.
Yes, ma'am.
That was too much?
No, hold on a second. Yes, ma'am.
It's not on that, it's on the ownership items. Can we start that not Tuesday agenda, but the next one, because it needs to start at the beginning when the item is initially put into the minute track. The owner of that item has to put it in there. So they would have to try to go back and change it.
Which part is this?
Okay.
That's for the work sessions. We're talking about the work sessions.
No, the ownership, you want it on it for the agenda items?
No. I don't expect them to have to, or any of us to put those items. When you put an item on the agenda, just at the bottom of the resolution, just put the commissioners.
Okay, but see, all of that won't print like this, what they have here. This is printed like this because when I initially put the item in, I put who the holder of that item was. So there's a certain location in minute track that you have to put it in. So we need to talk about that tomorrow at the meeting with the staff, because they have to put it in a certain location.
Let's talk through that, and then to your point, we'll hold off on the next meeting, on this coming up meeting.
Right.
And wait till the next, but we'll talk through that and figure out how that needs to be done, and then I'll relay that to the board. Anything else? Anybody? Okay, well, that concludes our first work session. I appreciate everybody being here. Have a good night and God bless.